Hey, Paula.
Hey, Paula.
We're trying to get Facebook situated.
Something went wrong. I loaded Facebook. I turned it on as usual, and nothing happened except for Sandra could see it, and no one else could. So I just tried it again. I turned my phone over, and let's see if we're up this time. Yeah, we're up now. We're up now.
Okay.
It's cool.
Cool.
Hey, everybody, and welcome. Would you, Sandra? Oh, Sandra may not still be there. Could you bring me a hand towel or a paper towel or something, please?
Sure.
Well, ladies and germs, I'm going to send a Owl Rock message. All right. Is my lipstick straight?
You need to put on some more red.
It's a little redder, huh?
Can't see the pink. It's the same color of your lips.
Hey, everybody. This kind of looks all right. I mean, this is pretty okay, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine. Mm-hmm.
that looks okay too.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. A reminder that we're having a discussion tonight about the Nard incident. I've made some really large print handouts to show you, starting with this advertisement for some Nard that you can buy. I'll show it to you in just a second, along with a quote that's just great for kicking us off. Jean, I thought I would defer to you for a moment and kind of ask you to bring together where we are, but with your group and my group right now.
Having fun. I hope everybody else has. I know Bert and I have, and I think Patricia knows it's him and me.
Yeah, we're having fun.
We have been walking the last week through the life of Jesus, what we traditionally call Holy Week these days, and trying to do our best to read what's actually in the four Gospels instead of reading into what we want to be in the four
Turn that up a little bit for me, please.
Understand and to get the chronology straight from Sunday
All the
Sunday.
way.
So in essence, from Palm Sunday
All the way.
Easter Sunday, and figure out what each text and each gospel writer has to say for each day of that week and that journey for Jesus, which brought us to today, to the events of Wednesday and Thursday of Holy Week, our terminology, Wednesdays and Thursdays. And one of the first things that happens is a dinner party in Bethany. Depending on which translation and which version you read as to where the party was, who the host was, who the woman with the nard was, and all the particulars of it. And with that, I give you Bert Gary.
Yeah, okay. Welcome. I love to see more people on Zoom. Right now, Sandra, I think, is the only one on live stream that I see, but I could be wrong. Because, if somebody doesn't type in, I don't know. Mm-hmm. We've found out many people who've been who were live with us say, "Oh, I just enjoyed it so much," and talked about what happened, and clearly they were there, and we didn't see them. We don't know. We don't always know.
Mode.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see how well I can put this up so that it can be seen. Can you see what that is? Can you read it? Okay, you on live stream, I'm doing the same thing. Hopefully you can see this. I may be too close, it just depends on the camera. Oh yeah, I'm too close. Well, it says Mary Magdalene anointing oil, okay? Anybody see a problem with that?
Yeah, a little bit.
The rest of you?
A lot.
What do you think? What do you think, Sheila?
I don't know. I don't think that would be the best thing to buy.
Probably
Wait,
not.
there's more.
But wait, there's more. Mary Magdalene didn't anoint anybody.
Exactly.
Mary Magdalene is not is identified over the centuries, including in a song, I think.
Yep.
How does you got the words?
Alabaster box.
Yeah, is Mary Magdalene in there somewhere?
So it just says Mary.
It just says Mary, so we could be okay.
Yeah. It just says Mary.
All right. Does it say anything about her being, a sinner or anything like that?
Yes.
It does.
Well, it implies that because, the words. Do you want me to sing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like a little.
Okay. The room grew still as she made her way to Jesus. She stumbled through the tears that made her blind. She felt such pain. Some spoke in anger. Heard folks whisper, "There's no place here for her kind."
Okay, that sounds like at Simon the Pharisee's house because they grumbled about her being a sinner.
Yes.
Okay, but it doesn't sound like Mary.
No, but
In
I think
Bethany, see what I'm
there's a
saying?
combination of things
Okay,
going on
so
here.
find the ones where it's off. Okay,
Still on she came.
no, find
through
it
the
before you
shame
sing
that
it.
flushed her face, till at last she knelt before his feet.
She knelt before his feet. Okay.
And though she spoke no words, everything she said was heard, as she poured her love for the master.
Yeah, but see, this
From
doesn't. That's not
the
helpful. You
alabaster.
understand?
Okay.
What we're looking for are the differences where it blends two different people. Okay, that what you just sang
well,
is pretty, but it.
But I thought the lady up front was different from this one here who's poured, from the Mary who's poured from the alabaster box.
Okay, so
aren't they two different people?
could be. We're going to look at that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then this
Okay.
one here,
Yeah.
it's the one who washed his feet with her tears.
Washed his feet with her tears.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Okay.
dried them with her hair.
And so we got oil and tears.
Yes.
Do we have nard anywhere in here?
It's not listed as Nard. Just talked about the cost.
Okay.
You don't know the cost.
So let
of
me.
the alabaster box.
So let's add to the song.
Hard to get something to rhyme with Nard.
Yeah. Nard.
Lard. How about lard?
Oh, don't go there.
You can get anointed with lard. My mom did that to us when we were sick. She plastered it over our
There's
face.
no way.
Yes. Yes.
I bet the nard doesn't. I mean, I bet the lard doesn't smell as nice as the nard.
Does not.
It does not.
Oh
Okay.
my God.
All
You
right.
don't want to know.
Hopefully this product, Sheila, doesn't smell like lard. But listen to the quote from the Amazon site that sells it, or whatever this site is, for $54 for 8 ounces. Okay, and that's not with tax and shipping. It reads, in Luke's gospel, Mary is described as a sinner. True or false? No, not the one who did the anointing, and not Mary Magdalene.
No.
Neither Mary is described as a sinner. Okay, and then it says, nevertheless, her precious gift and humility were welcomed by Jesus. He defended her. By the way, I don't think it's named as Mary. I don't think the woman is named in Luke's gospel.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
So this is wrong on 2 counts. We don't know in Luke's gospel her name's not Mary, and she's not described as a sinner. So how can we straighten this out? Because there are at least 3 stories, maybe 4 involved here,
Combined.
and people get them confused. And I really want to blame like this. I read about this was years ago. I read about this. I think he was like a 13th century pope or something, and he did this very famous sermon where he just combined Mary Magdalene, Mary of Bethany, and every other Mary he could find, and a bunch of unnamed people, and just kind of made them into one character, so that the woman caught in adultery in John 8, yep, Mary Magdalene. The woman who it's the unnamed woman at Simon the Pharisee's house where Jesus was ambushed by at lunch or dinner or whatever that was. Yeah, that was Mary Magdalene, and by doing that, I mean, maybe he helped start a chain reaction of conflating these different women. It doesn't help that Mary's the most common name. in Hebrew at the time. So let's take a look at this. Now, what I preached for you on Sunday is on the far right. That's John, okay? And I've got to figure out how to hold this up so that you can see it. Maybe both groups. I don't know. I'm trying. Can I put it in front of your face, Patricia, for just 1 minute?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Can you see it? Okay, so we've got Luke 7 on the left. We're at Simon the Pharisee's house. And John 12 on the right, we're at Lazarus and Mary and Martha's house in Bethany. These are two different locations, two different houses owned by two different families. All right? So what woman was at Jesus' feet? In Luke, I don't know if you can read it or not, but right here,
Unnamed woman.
what does it say? Unnamed woman.
Yes.
And then over here, in the John story, it's Mary of Bethany who lives there. She isn't coming off the street or anything. This is her home. And then down at the bottom, what did the woman say? And in both stories, Mary in John and the unnamed woman in Luke, they say nothing.
You're messing up my song.
I am messing up your song. That's what I'm trying to do. All right. Of course, I can't see this backwards. I mean, it's facing away from me. I'm hoping that I can see it off the screen. Can you all read that? Okay, I can read it on my screen a little bit. All right, so what did she bring? In Luke, she brought an alabaster jar of ointment. In that story, there are tears and vases too, perhaps. So we have to keep that in mind. Over on the right in John, a pound of costly perfume made of pure nard. All right. Then we have, what did the women do? And this is where it gets interesting. In Luke, at Simon the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster jar of ointment to Simon's home, stood behind Jesus' feet, wept, and bathed. What does that say? Bathed? Bathed Jesus' feet with her tears and dried Jesus' feet with her hair. That's at Simon the Pharisee's house. That's an unknown woman. Back over at John's Gospel at Bethany with Mary, she took a pound of costly perfume made of pure nard. She anointed Jesus' feet with nard, and she wiped Jesus' feet with her hair. You follow? No, do you see why these get confused?
So the woman who had the costly nard is unknown, you're saying?
We haven't gotten to the alabaster box yet. It hasn't been mentioned.
Okay.
It's another story. It's coming up in a sec.
Okay.
All right. So now what do we have? We have in Luke's gospel, she continued to kiss his feet and anoint them with the ointment throughout pretty much the meal. Okay, who complained in the story of Simon? Simon did. He said if he they were complaining, the whole group was complaining, but Simon was like, if you knew what kind of woman this was, you wouldn't let her touch you. But in John's story, of course, it was Judas Iscariot who said this money should have been sold and given to the poor. Mm-hmm. This nard should have been sold and the money given to the poor. All right, and that's so you can see the complaint. If this man were prophet, and why was this perfume not sold? Two totally different houses, two totally different families in two totally different cities, with a woman who comes in and does something somewhat similar. How does it end? It ends like this. Jesus' response to the complaint was that he told a parable to Simon, and he concluded that he who is forgiven little loves little. But he told Judas to leave Mary alone, and that you always have the poor with you, but you do not always have me. Got it? All right, you think you got this straightened out, and I just want to let you breathe for a minute and tell me if you think you've got that straightened out. These are two different stories. Have you got them straight? Because we got another complication coming up. Any questions?
Okay, that was Paula. She said that your voice was going in and out.
Yes.
I should put my microphone on then. Is this going to help?
Is that better?
How about this? Check 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for letting us know.
All right, now we have a situation where we might have the same story told somewhat differently. We just told you two stories that are clearly not the same story. Mm-hmm. But now we have the John story that we seem to have a version of the John story with the Nard. Okay? Mm-hmm. We seem to have it in Matthew and Mark, and Jean was talking about that this morning. So we need to take a look at that because that's tricky. All right, we're talking about Mark 21, 6 through 13, and we're talking about Mark 14, 3 through 9. Matthew 21, 6 through 13, Mark 14, 3 through 9. And again, in the right-hand column, we got John 12. Now, on this particular story, these two stories are probably the same story, but the details are different enough that it raises eyebrows. Okay? So where did the story take place? Well, they agree they both took place in Bethany. Mm-hmm. But look whose house it says it is. Luke, Matthew, and Mark say that he was at table in the home of Simon the leper in Bethany. And John says it's Lazarus in Bethany. Is that the same guy? Has he got like two nicknames? One is the leper, which Jean made a great comment on this morning. I mean, how do you get known as? Shouldn't he be the Lazarus formerly known as the leper or something, or the Bethany dweller formerly known as? I mean, shouldn't he be the former leper or ex-leper or something? I don't think he'd be at the table.
The once dead and former leper.
The once dead and former leper.
Wow.
Okay, so perhaps the guy's name, like Peter, is, Simon. But Jesus likes to give nicknames, and it could be that Lazarus was a nickname that Jesus gave him or that someone else gave him. And so it could be the same guy because the events are extremely similar. So what woman was at Jesus' feet? In Matthew and Mark, the woman's name is not given, and it almost sounds like she's not a part of the family. But again, as you know in John, because you've seen it a million times, and I preached it on Sunday, Mary is the sister of Lazarus and Martha, and there's a lot about them in John's Gospel. All right, what did the woman in the story say? They didn't say anything. All right, what did she bring? Now here we come with the alabaster. Matthew and Mark say that the woman brought an alabaster jar of very expensive ointment, very costly ointment. Mm-hmm. Okay? But John, as you know, says a pound of costly perfume made of pure nard. If you're wondering what nard is, I've never seen any myself, but I understand that it grows really well in the Himalayas, and thus the cost of it in Palestine. Think about how much work is involved in getting something from the Himalayas to Israel.
Yeah.
Plus, it's pure and it is rare and it smells great. So you can understand why it would cost so much. So, alabaster jar of very expensive ointment, which she broke open. I don't know what that means. She broke it open, and a pound of costly perfume made of pure nard. It doesn't say whether the nard was in liquid form or not, although some scholars have tried to make it liquid. It could have been. I'm just saying that there's no word in the sentence that confirms that it was solid or liquid. All right, so what did the woman do? Well, Matthew and Luke say that she broke open an alabaster jar of ointment and poured it on Jesus' head. But John says, took a pound of nard, anointed Jesus' feet. Matthew and Mark say head. John says feet, and then wiped his feet with her hair. And Matthew and Mark make no mention of her hair. She just poured it on his head, which, by the way, is more normal. When you visit someone today, the typical thing that you would get offered if you came to the door would be, can I get you something to drink? We've got some snacks. The restroom's over here. May I take your coat? But back then it was, you greet them with a kiss on the cheeks, back and forth. And you offer them a pan of water or maybe a servant to help them wash their feet. And then you pour sweet-smelling oil on their head. That's normal. That's what you do for a guest. That's like offering them iced tea, okay? Mm-hmm. But pouring it on the feet is extravagant and strange and unusual because normally you would wash the feet with water. But she was actually kind of washing his feet with the most expensive liquid in the house.
Well, maybe it was poured on his head and it rolled right down to his feet.
The temptations to fix this are many, and that's one of them. I'm telling you the difference.
Find a way to make it fit. It has to fit.
Well, see, we want to know what happened like we're reading the newspaper. Yeah. Gene, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Western sensibilities.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, so how could these stories be the same story and yet there are these differences here? So let's just keep going. There's another critical difference. It's Judas, in what I preached on Sunday in John's Gospel, it's Judas who complains about the wasted nard, okay? But in Matthew and Mark, it's the entire group of disciples. They're all angry, it says. They're angry, they're complaining. Mm-hmm. They can't believe she did something like that. They're incensed, all right? And they're letting her have it seems like. So what happened next? Well, they complained that this ointment should have been sold for a large sum of money and given into the poor. Actually, that's pretty much what Judas says. Sold for 100 denarii and given to the poor. Very similar. Mm-hmm. Starting to sense that this is the same story with just a few details difference. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what was Jesus' response? Now, this is a little different. Jesus' response in Matthew and Mark was, "Why do you trouble the woman? She has performed a good service for me. For you always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me. By pouring this ointment on my body, she has prepared me for burial. Truly, I tell you, wherever this good news is proclaimed to the whole world, what she has done will be told in remembrance of her." Now, let's go back to John and refresh our memory. In John, Jesus says, "Leave her alone." And then I reversed the next two sentences, okay, because to match them up with Matthew and Luke, they actually aren't in this order. You always have the poor with you, but you do not always have me. She bought it so that she might keep it for the day of my burial. Now, I'm done with that. I'm done with the handouts. And I'll bring them back if you have any questions. But is that the same story? Is there enough evidence that we can say that's the same story told by two different people with slightly different names and descriptions? I vote yes. Does anybody else want to vote with me?
I mean, I think so. It's like an accident happened, and everybody has you ask everyone to explain what happened. They have the same accident, but from a different eye account. It's like they saw it from this view, someone else saw it from another view. Mm-hmm. So someone might have been behind the vehicles, and so we have different eye accounts. And I think that sounds like what happened here.
Yeah. I agree. Different accounts of the same event.
If we assume that they were all first-person events, that would be harder to swallow. But if we assume that they've already heard this story from someone else, then you're 1 degree of separation before pen ever hit paper.
Yes. So that's a good point because, as Gene has mentioned before, the strongest theory that we know of is that Mark was written first, and I've worked to try to for this theory not to be true, and I can't untrue it. Mm-hmm. It's estimated that 90% of Mark is in Matthew. A good bit of it word for word. Mm-hmm. 50% of Mark is in Luke, some of it word for word. Luke is the real literary genius, and Mark was more pedestrian. Short sentences, quick information, no elaboration. As Gene says, immediately. He loves that word.
Yep.
So it's one thing right after the other, fast. And Luke's like, whoa, let's slow the bus down here. There's stuff to see. Luke also wrote, at the very beginning of his gospel, he wrote, many people have undertaken to write down the events that have occurred in recent years. But I too have taken it upon myself to research everything thoroughly for you, O most excellent Theophilus, that you might have an orderly and clear and correct account of the things that occurred. Luke does us a great favor. He describes himself as a researcher and an editor. He has sources, eyewitness, and written. I think he's got a copy, some sort of early copy of Mark on his desk. He's got something that we call the Q document. It's a hypothetical document because there's material that's not in Mark, but it's in both Luke and Matthew, and it's almost word for word similar. So it looks like Luke had Q, and Luke had Mark, and Luke had other stuff too, like some of the most famous stuff that we love from the Gospels is in only Luke, like the prodigal son, the parable of the prodigal son, only there. So the theory is that Mark was written first, and then sometime, probably around 70 AD, we're not sure. Maybe in the 80s, Luke and Matthew were written, and then maybe in the 90s, John was written. But think about how many years that is after the crucifixion and resurrection and ascension of Jesus. That's quite a while. And the oldest fragment of a New Testament scroll that we have, I was just looking at a picture of it. I should go get it. It's a tiny little fragment. It has on the front and the back a few broken verses of John 18. It was written on papyrus in Egypt in the language of Koine Greek, and it's from the 2nd century. Okay, that's the oldest fragment we've got. We don't have original copies of these Gospels. They also are written anonymously. There's no reference in the Gospels themselves of who wrote them. The assignment of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John was done by the church later, no earlier than the 3rd century, I don't believe. And it was to honor those original disciples, but we don't know who wrote these 4 documents for sure. We don't have the autographs of any of them. That is the first handwritten. What we've got is the earliest that we can say is we might have fragments of one of the earliest copies.
Looks like we have some comments also.
Yes, we do. But we didn't. But that doesn't fix what we're talking about here necessarily, because if Luke and Matthew, if Mark and Matthew in this story had the same source as John, one of them probably wouldn't have changed those details. It looks like they got traditioned in different geographical areas, and they were traditioned using different names for the guy. Somebody didn't fill John in, maybe when he was putting his gospel together in the 90s AD. That, oh, by the way, the woman who did that stuff with the ointment, that was Lazarus or Simon the leper's sister. But Matthew and Mark not knowing that, but John did. John knew. It was Matthew and Mark that did not. Okay, I need to stop talking for a minute because I'm like getting hyper and I need to let other people jump in. Gene, anybody else?
I'm curious what everybody thinks after getting all this amount of overwhelming information.
What did Joe said? Sorry, I can't take part tonight. We have tornadoes headed our way.
Yeah, there's bad weather out there. Gene was talking about it this morning. Where's the weather right now, Gene?
It's passed through here. We've had a lot of thunder and lightning and a lot of wind.
Yes.
I think it's east of me now.
Okay, Dieter is.
Louisiana just had it real bad too.
Oh, great.
Oh, wow. Ruby said, "Is there a meeting ID?"
Yeah,
You can
Ruby,
join.
I sent you an email and I sent you an Owl Rock message, and I put it on the Owl Rock group main page. There's one link for this, and it stays the same. It's staying the same. It's the same link.
There's no password. You don't need a password.
You don't need a password. Just click it. Click the link, and we'll get you in here. Where'd Paula go? Oh,
She's still there. She just took the
disappeared.
camera off.
She fell on the floor.
She just took
Paula? Paula? See, she did fall on the floor. Look, she can't. She's fallen and she can't get up.
Oh, poor Paula, really?
Oh Lord.
I am right here.
Paula, we can see you from the lower lip up. We can see you.
Beautiful, beautiful.
All right. Okay. So was that overwhelming? Was that overwhelming, Gene? Because what I was trying to do was keep it as simple as I could. It's really hard to make this simple, but the first one I showed you was there is that thing at Simon the Pharisee's house, but now we've got Simon the leper. I mean, it really gets convoluted. Simon the leper is not Simon. There's no way. That's a totally different geographical place, a totally separate event with different circumstances. But we also have we have two versions of what appear to be the same story, both of them in Bethany, both of them describing an event that's very, very similar. We just have a different name for the nard. It's called an alabaster jar of ointment.
Oil.
Expensive
It says
oil.
here.
No, I think it says ointment, not oil, in the Greek.
I think that's how we get misinterpretation of scripture.
Yep.
Because there are so many Simons, and some may not be
Marys.
aware of that, and so many Marys in Magdalene, and so they get convoluted
And
together.
Johns.
And yes, you're right. And so sometimes it's difficult if you don't know how to really search and study and to go to other sources other than the Bible itself
Yes.
to really get the background information. You can be confused.
Well, I've been confused over the years. This is not easy. I've been unpacking this for long enough that it's not fuzzy to me. But if you remember the first time that I preached it some years ago at Owl Rock, and I had a little handout or something, and I showed that these were two different stories. Simon the Pharisee's house, not in in Bethany, and then the whole thing with John in Bethany. And you were just like, oh, my God, my song is wrong. Because she loves this song.
I love it to death. I mean,
And I said, well, Patricia, think about all of the hymns that are wrong.
yeah.
Our hymns are full of biblical error. I mean, they just don't get it right
doesn't line
to
up.
some degree sometimes. Now, we sing them because we love them. We love the tunes, we love the words, we learned them from childhood. And you can keep loving this song, by the way, because it's a pretty song. I like this song. But it conflates two different stories at least.
I hear you.
And what is it about us that tends to want to conflate things to make it a simple, homogeneous story?
Because it feels better. It makes us feel better. It's like, this is the same woman. Oh my God. The same one who went through this, and look what she ended up doing. So it makes the story more attractive, for one.
It's hard to sit with that tension. It makes you want to fix it. It's like, we have two different versions of Judas' suicide. You want to talk about that for a minute? Or you want me to roll or what?
Yeah, there's a horrible story that I won't tell. My son got called out. My son is a Nashville police officer, and one of his first death calls was a gentleman who had committed suicide, and they never did figure out until the autopsy which of the two methods he employed as to the one that finally took his life, whether it was the hanging or the gunshot.
Right.
And all I could think of when I heard that story was Judas jumped off a cliff with a rope around his neck, and somewhere in the fall and sudden stop, he died. Which one's true? It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
You want to make it into a simpler story
Yeah.
to make it easier to swallow.
So you got one story saying, well, he hung himself. And then you got another source saying, well, He split his bowels open on the rocks by jumping, I guess.
Self-stone.
So how do you fix that? Well, the rope broke.
Yeah.
The oil upon his head made the rope slip, causing him to fall further down the cliff than he originally anticipated, and I'll shut up now.
Yeah, so the question is, are we okay with we don't know? Because we don't know on some of these things. We weren't there. And Gospels are funny things. They're not newspapers, and they aren't novels, and they aren't biographies. A Gospel is a literary form. And it's a simple literary form to understand. See these pearls? Okay, that's what a gospel is. Just think of pearls on a string. So Mark's got a bunch of pearls. He's got a bunch of these stories, got a bunch of these teachings, and he's trying to string them together in such a way that they make sense. And sometimes chronologically it doesn't, and sometimes it does, because he's trying to piece things together that are thematically related. So in some cases the chronologies are different with the Gospels, and they're doing that for theological purposes. For example, Gene went over this beautifully with the cleansing of the temple. Where's the cleansing of the temple in Matthew, Mark, and Luke? Well, it's the last week of Jesus' life, apparently. But in John, it's in chapter 2. Now, some people try to fix that by saying, well, he must have cleansed it twice. Well, let's understand what a gospel is. It's pearls on a string. And those guys tried to do it. It looks to me like they tried to do it chronologically to the best of their ability, but they weren't married to it. If they had to thematically or theologically move something here or there, they did. So we come up with different orders of things happening, and we get different details. And these people had different sources. Imagine the gospel going into the Greek-speaking world. How did that happen? You know, these Christians were going on boats, and they were walking on Roman roads, and they spread over a period of decades out across the Mediterranean basin, northern Africa and Alexandria and down in Egypt. And then they went up into Greece and Macedonia. They were over in Italy. They were in Turkey, Asia Minor. They went everywhere. And in each of these locations, somewhere in these can you hear me?
I think Donna was speaking to someone else.
Oh, okay, Donna, I'm sorry. So, so in each of these locations, they're collecting pearls. Okay, they're collecting these stories. They're coming together. And here's the cool part, y'all. And when I saw this, I was really excited. I really never had Paul in perspective chronologically. You know, his letters were all written before the Gospels. He was dead before a Gospel was written. Think about it. The oldest material, yes, the Apostle Paul, he wrote in the 50s and maybe early 60s. He wrote his letters before any gospel was written down that we know of. Mark is supposed to be the earliest, around 70 AD. So there's a primacy for the Pauline material, for Paul's letters, that we forget, and that is that our oldest source of information about Christianity and Christ and the church is not from the Gospels, even though they come first in order in the Bible. They are not first chronologically. Paul wrote first.
If I can take your analogy for just a minute.
Sure.
The pearls, of course, all I can think of is the old big hand song, String of Pearls. There are cultured pearls. There are natural pearls. There are Mediterranean pearls, Atlantic pearls, Pacific pearls, and Gulf pearls.
Yeah.
Pearls
That's
on
nice.
the coast of Australia. You know, you've got the context of the four gospel writers, whoever they were, writing to four different faith communities in four different eras of the church, with telling a different version of the same story.
It's funny that we try to hold the Gospels, Gene, to a more rigorous standard than we would other documents or other sources that we have, ancient and modern. It strikes me as strange, because if you compare the Gospels to one another, especially Matthew, Mark, and Luke, who we call the synoptics, and they're very similar because they all, seems like Matthew and Luke had a copy of Mark. A lot of Mark in those other two. If you take that into account, there's remarkable agreement. There's remarkable agreement amongst those. Now, John is a different animal, as Gene has said, because 90% of John is brand new. You got a few things in there that are in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, like this event, the Nard, seems to be a parallel there. His crucifixion, of course, the cleansing of the temple, the feeding of the 5,000. There are a few stories, that 10% of John that parallels the others. The rest of it pretty much brand new.
And I think that's why they separated as the synoptic and then the optic gospel, John being different.
It is very different. It's the different one. It's the redheaded stepchild in a way, and people have tried to malign John too. I think some of the scholars are.
Redheaded stepchild?
Yeah, it's like they've tried to malign John because he was written late. He's not as trustworthy historically because this is a theological gospel and it's more legendary and it's more evolved because it was written later. And they say stuff like that. And every time we turn around, we find out that John was historically as accurate, if not more, than the other gospels were when naming certain places that the archaeologists get into and dig in. It's remarkable how accurate John was, like the Pool of Bethesda.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think he was more accurate than the others?
I don't think there's a reason. I'm just saying that even though it was written a few years after Matthew, Mark, and Luke,
Maybe gathered information by then?
Is no reason for the modern scholars to say, well, it has to be less accurate, just because it was a little later. It wasn't that much later.
1 John against 3 synoptics.
Yeah.
So he must be less important.
Yeah. And
this area of incongruity is the area we get beat up on most by atheistic or agnostic people who point to all the inconsistencies and timelines and stories because they simply don't understand it. And more and more I run into those folks that are more fundamentalistic than believing Christians. Yeah,
it's disturbing because it seems to me that some of the university religion departments are geared up for one thing and one thing only. Convince the students to be atheists, and then get them so angry at Christians that they'll go out and attack them all the time. So it's like a training ground for a new fundamentalism, an atheistic fundamentalism, which is unfortunate that they're doing that to our kids. But at the same time, when I hear those kids online or on a YouTube video or online somewhere, I often hear them saying, well, we don't even have an original copy, so it's hearsay, so it wouldn't even hold up in a court of law. And like I'd never heard that before. First of all, he's wrong, and second of all, who are you parenting? What professor are you parroting? It's not like you did any research, kid. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm curious about the others who are listening in to see if you've ever been confused, perhaps, with the Gospels. And what's your take? Anybody on Facebook or on Zoom? Anyone want to respond?
Or if you like, another question, and you can respond to either. Why is it so hard for us to just let these things kind of stand in tension next to one another without us having to fix it or explain it? It takes a lot of practice to do that. It's not easy. Because we're afraid that if it doesn't fit just right, well, that it can't be true, and therefore our whole house of cards of faith is just going to come falling down.
And then we go back to what we talked about last week, where we make stuff up. You make it fit.
Yep.
Well, it must be this then. Well, if he was at this house, then it must be, this Mary or whatever the case.
Yeah, I mean, my favorites are that Matthew pairs things up sometimes that are just one person or one thing. In Matthew's gospel, there's not one demoniac. there are two. In Matthew's gospel, there isn't one blind man who the other gospels name Bartimaeus. There are two blind men. On the procession on supposedly Palm Sunday, on the donkey, guess what? Matthew has two donkeys and he rode both of them.
It's Ruby. And
Hey, Ruby!
Hey, y'all.
Is Danita there with you?
Yeah, I think that was her who was there first. Welcome.
Hey,
So
Danita.
good
Hey,
to see
Ruby.
y'all.
You look about 10 years younger. What are you doing?
Oh, I curl my hair.
Way to go, Ruby.
I I curled my hair too.
Yours didn't take, sweetie. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I mean, these two questions are good ones. Okay, Yours was.
So, have you ever been confused with the stories in the synoptic gospels or in the gospels?
Let's ask it as not a
Yeah.
yes/no question.
Well, yeah. What are your views on
What's
the
been your
different
experience?
versions? Yeah.
What's your
this
experience with struggling
Mm-hmm.
with the difference when gospels don't seem to agree? And the other question was, why do we have the impulse that we're like, we got to fix it?
Mm-hmm.
How do we get Jesus off riding two donkeys? How do we reconcile? Well, it's one demoniac or it's two demoniacs. It's one blind person or it's two blind persons. You know, those tensions are there, and there are plenty of them. And right here, we've got one. We got Simon the leper, and we got Lazarus, and it appears to be the same man.
Yeah.
So did somebody get the name wrong? We don't know. Is Lazarus a nickname for Simon the leper? We don't know. Why is he called the leper? That's awful.
Yeah, I know.
Is this the guy that Jesus raised from the dead in John 11 or not? Is Simon Lazarus? It would fix the problem, because the stories are so like they're about 85-90% the same.
Similar, yeah.
They're very similar. Okay, those are the two questions. What's your experience and struggle with the differences in the Gospels, and the impulse to fix it is the other question. Why the impulse, and how do you move past that?
Well, mine, when I first getting back into Christianity and reading my Bible more, I was totally confused. Because here it said this, over here it said that. So you're going back and forth, and all of a sudden you just go, just forget it. You know, I'll just take it as it is. But that's not what you really want to do. You want to fish into it, and you really want to straighten it out so that you've got a good, clear head on what you're reading. I mean, you talk about fix it. That's what I want to do. I just want to keep on fixing. You know, I want it to suit me, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Well, when you get that last puzzle piece in, it feels good because you have a sense of completion. You have resolution. It's very satisfying. The Gospels won't let you do that, though. At some points, even though we can celebrate. Excuse me. We can celebrate that they agree a great deal. And maybe more than you would think they would, given the difference in geography between them, because they seem to have been written in various distant places. They agree a lot, but not enough that it doesn't freak Sheila out every once in a while, which I get. It freaks me out sometimes too. I fix everything I can. You know, some things are fixable. Some things can come together with enough study, but it's hard to fix other things, and it just doesn't seem to want to fall together. And I don't know if we're ever going to be able to figure out this whole Simon and Lazarus thing. Is this the same guy?
Yeah.
Well, that was my question a long time ago.
Yeah.
I think the answer to the question is probably yes. I wasn't there, though. I don't know for sure. I'm just saying, I'm making an educated guess. It sounds like it's the same guy, and either someone mistakenly called him the wrong name, or received a tradition about him being a different name, or he goes by both of those names, just like Simon goes by Peter. Or Mary is called the Magdalene.
Yeah.
Or the sons,
other Mary.
the sons of thunder are, that's James and John are called the sons of thunder. Don't you say a word, Gene. We have a joke about the sons of thunder.
Yeah. What about the rest of you? Paula or Donna or Dita? It was on Facebook streaming. Anything you want to add?
I don't see anything new here.
No, she just said that she was there, so she might be listening still.
Who's that?
Dita.
Dita?
Yeah.
Hey, Dita.
Yeah.
Anybody?
Well, we have 3 more minutes. Anybody want to have something to share about their experience tonight? And or what we're doing?
I need to get cleared with all the Marys, to be honest with you. It's like, it's just so many Marys. I have confused them myself.
I think I counted 8 one time.
It's just too many Mary. Why did they name all the children Mary? That's another.
It's not even Mary. It's Miriam.
Miriam.
It's Miriam.
My sister's middle name is Maria.
Yeah, sometimes it says Maria in the scriptures too. I think it's, but it's the same name. Mary, Maria, Miriam, all the same. Yeah, we have quite a number of Marys, don't we? Mary, the mother of Jesus, Mary Magdalene.
And then we identify a lot of people in our church by that. So if someone wants to, handle all the food every time we have some event, that's Martha. Okay, Mary is, in the choir singing. And they name them that way because of, a particular story. And then you get identified that way. Have you all heard that?
Oh, yeah. It's like you're stereotyping people. You pigeonhole them into a certain task.
Yes, that's a Martha. This one is called, I've heard mothers say that about their girls. She's a Martha. Oh, this one's going to be a Mary. And what they mean is one's going to be in the church preaching or singing or doing something, and the other
is going to be a worker in the kitchen or something.
In the kitchen, behind the scenes, doing that kind of stuff. So that's my research. I'm going to get cleared on who the 8 Marys were.
You and maybe get some therapy. The church for church stereotyping wounds.
Lord, I know.
All right, so Bert, I've got one parting gift.
Yes, sir.
You ready?
Yes.
There once was a woman from Bethany who loved Jesus no matter who was threatening. She anointed with Nard and said, "It's not hard. You just trust Christ for all of eternity." Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
Gene, can you please repeat that? I'm sorry.
No. I actually wrote it down in the middle of all this.
Oh, Lord. That's good,
I will type it up and send it to you.
Please. Thank you so much.
Very nice. Very nice, Gene. To me, even though I probably talk more than other people because I'm kind of the pastor of the church kind of thing, I still feel good about this paneling that we're doing here. And I appreciate those of you who are here and not speaking and or typing, and I appreciate and listening, because that's an important role. Mm-hmm. If you're not ready to talk, you're not ready to talk, okay? Mm-hmm. We're going to keep asking you, not because we want to pressure you like you're doing something wrong. This is not an altar call with psychological pressure tactics or something. Mm-hmm. We just want you to feel invited to speak if you want to, and sometimes people like encouragement. On the other hand, don't feel pressure. And then I also appreciate the way the round table's going here. And I'm trying to work hard on listening, because I have so many thoughts going through my head when you all are talking that I end up preparing my next follow-up, and then I miss something. I noticed that happened last week when I watched the recording. So I'm working on listening hard, and if I miss something, I apologize. But I love the contributions that people are making. Mm-hmm. Also, did you notice that the theme tonight was similar to last week? It was struggling with new learning that challenges old assumptions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how we learn. Those cognitive dissonances that we have are a great motivation for learning. And also, our doubts are not a threat to our faith. Our doubts are essential because because otherwise you're just accepting things rote. You're not thinking for yourself. It's just like mom and dad said it was good enough for them. Well, it's good enough for me. I don't have to think about it. Well, okay.
I think, yeah. Yeah,
I
I'm
can't do
going to
that.
ask, and if I disagree, I disagree until I'm clear on what I need to know. So, Bert's, he's accustomed to that. I question his sermons all the time. Where'd you get that from? Where'd you find that?
Which I invite.
Never heard that before. I've been preaching all my life. I've never seen that in the Bible. Which Bible are you reading?
Yeah, I heard. Listen. You think she's kidding? She's not kidding. And now I don't hear that tone anymore because it's been 11 years. But when we first started dating, and then she came to the church and started listening to my preaching, there were hours of conversation, and she had that tone. Where do you get that? That's not in the Bible. What are you talking about? And unfortunately for her, I was always right. So.
And what I appreciated about you, not always. I just heard what you said. No, you're not always right. Anyway, but forgot where I was going with that. It was very helpful, though, to hear. And what I appreciated about you was you never forced anything on me or said, no, this is the way it is, and you need to start believing that. It was always
I don't do that to anybody.
In a tone where I can hear it, and I can think for myself, and I can determine where I want to go from there. Show it to me. I have my Bible. You have yours. I want to look at it. I want to find it in my Bible.
Yeah.
So I want to see it there.
So,
and and it was and when I heard the background and where it was written, who wrote it, and why, it made so much more sense.
Well, we've run out of time, so we need to wrap this up. But I just want y'all to know that kicking this stuff around feels good to me. And as long as it's feeling good to you guys too, I want you to come back. Gene, we especially thank you for participating and sharing in the panel discussion.
Appreciate you.
And I watch him do his thing, he watches me do my thing, and suddenly now we're kind of coordinating, and it fell together in a providential way for me.
We're going to get a tent and go on the road. Huh?
Yeah, we should get on the road. Hey, I mean, we should just come up to your place and just do it live from your place.
Y'all need a manager? I'll be the manager.
There you go.
I'll set it up.
Well, I can imagine Becky and you and Patricia and I sitting around your big dining room table there in the middle of that place, and that'd be great.
We don't even need an eclipse.
Yeah, we don't even need an eclipse, although one would be nice.
Please don't tell anybody eclipse.
Ladies and gentlemen, anything else?
It's good to see all of you. Donna, it's so good to see you.
Hey,
and
Donna.
Sheila, this is my first time seeing you. I am so excited to meet you face to face after talking on the chat for so long.
It's good to see the both of you.
Yeah.
Sheila, where did we first meet?
On Facebook, and I commented about your bird pictures. I always had a comment.
Okay, and our mutual friend is Dale.
Yes.
Okay, your former
Yes.
pastor. Is that your pastor or your
Yes.
former pastor?
Former.
Okay.
I no longer have Pastor Dale anyway because I'm in Louisiana, but he was.
You went to Louisiana and he's now retired.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I was curious because there are some people up there in your church who went to Israel with me.
Yes. Nancy Hairhold was.
Yeah.
Yeah, she tunes in.
Yes.
And I thought maybe you might have been one of those, but I said, no, I think she's just one of the people who were at the church up there in Tennessee.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
So this is Donna. She's our board chair, Sheila,
Donna.
and Paula. She does our finance.
Donna.
She does our finances.
She takes my money every week.
And these are two of the greatest people on earth, Sheila, and so are you.
Well, thank you.
And Ruby, don't forget Ruby, even though she left us and went to Cumming.
Ruby looks like she's just a box sitting there. Hello, goodbye.
She's eating. I saw a big, nice piece of chicken on low.
Hey,
a few
hey,
minutes
Ruby,
ago.
you got any Nard in that cupboard back there?
You better believe I got just about everything we need.
Well, don't say that. No contraband or anything in there, right?
We're coming to Kami.
We were just eating chicken. Listen, Patricia, can we ask you for a little small prayer request?
Yes.
This is Danita.
Hey, Danita.
Hey,
Yeah.
Danita.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're buying a house in Dawsonville,
Mhm.
and we're moving the end of April.
Mm-hmm.
So can you just pray that everything goes smoothly?
You got it.
And we won't have any more stairs to climb either.
Oh, good. Very good. Why don't we just close with a short prayer right now, and we'll pray for Danita's and their house.
Go
How about
ahead.
that?
Go ahead, please.
Lord, we thank you for this day and this time of study. We thank you, oh God, for all that we're learning, for opening our hearts and our minds. We thank you for all those who are gathered here today with us. Continue to bless us and open our hearts so we will learn more about you. We thank you for Danita and Ruby who've joined us today, Lord God, and as they're buying a house in Dawsonville, Lord, we pray that all will go well. We thank you, O God, for the move, Lord God, that you will send them help. Bless them, I pray, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. We'll see you guys. We'll see you guys soon on Sunday.
Yes.
If there's good weather, we're going to be out in the prayer garden at the church, okay? And you can come there or you can watch by live stream, all right? Now, I may change my mind though, because if I'm pondering the cross and I may need to use that PowerPoint. So I'll let you know.
Sheila wanted to say something.
Yes, Sheila.
One thing before we leave.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you for all the prayers that you have sent up for my granddaughter Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
She is coming along great.
Wonderful.
She's coming along great. So I really thank you.
You're welcome. Y'all have a great evening.
Thank you. Good to see all of you. Take care. See y'all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Love y'all.
Love you.
Okay.
Love you.
Love you.